In my dream, I was standing on the edge of a pier looking into the ocean, and I was longing to connect with a mermaid. And I just threw that longing from my heart, calling to a mermaid. And sure enough, this water movement came toward me, and up popped a beautiful mermaid. Hi, everybody. It's Christina with Christina West Art and Healing. I'm so glad you're here. Yay, mermaids. It's mermaids today. I moved recently, and many of my wonderful art pieces are in boxes, and I just found it this week. So, what's so wonderful is, yay, we have one of my mermaids. Mermaids to me are one of the deepest archetypal female wisdom icons that for me are mermaids are incredibly healing as a visual icon. I grew up next to the ocean, a couple of houses from the beach. So listening to the ocean constantly as a background rhythm, it has lodged deep in my soul. And this vlog is part of my recreating myself and resetting life after a certain age and to get back home to Santa Barbara. And this is my beautiful mermaid. She's one of my favorite mermaids. She's on black ragboard. And this is a close-up. She's a figurative painting in acrylic with some Posca markers for detail. I grew up absolutely crazy about fashion. And fashion, of course, is figurative. I got a degree in fashion design and merchandising. And the teacher of the Ventura College where I went, Mary Michaels, was an owner in one of the high-end retail stores called Scott's, if I remember that accurately. And Mary was very, very instrumental in giving me support when I really didn't know anything. And in the country life that we lived in, because we had moved from the ocean, fashion and having anything to do with fashion was never something I thought I could do. However, I was an artist and I loved fashion design. Oh my God, I love modeling. They got me modeling and I did backdrops and it was wonderful. The human figure I am in love with, and I'm a figurative artist, and that means I come at the human figure through a couple of directions. One is I love folk art. I love the cultural heart of the folk soul. That is, you can see, is it comes from the heart. It's immediately, hopefully, resonates. And as a professional artist, I do a lot of different kinds of art, but mermaids have one of the deepest secret places in my heart. And when I was young, I loved mermaids. In fact, the Grimm's fairy tale book that I still have on my shelves here had in green ink these beautiful mermaids, little tiny. So when you open the book, the whole inside book covers before you got to the pages was these green inked mermaids. And I think I was 4 or 5 when that book was given to the kids, and I grew up with that book. So mermaids, I would say, is one of my first imprinting as a human being. And I became one of the eBay queens. I sold hundreds and hundreds, perhaps actually thousands of mermaids daily on eBay for many years until I switched to fashion design. And this is one of my absolutely favorite mermaids. And what I would do is I would go to the local art store and they were the custom frame shop, and they would throw away all the ragboard, all these pieces. So I got pieces of all these ragboards and I cut them to standard sizes because I actually worked in frame shops and did museum framing. So I cut them all to standard sizes or as big as I wanted. And because this is actually looking for a home. And I had a massive collector base on eBay, but that was many years ago. And these are some of the pieces that I did then. And this is, I believe, a 2005. It's a vertical, and she is just one of my favorites. So I'll tell you one of my first dreams of mermaids. And you have to remember, as a child, everything is so big. And I bigly loved mermaids. I just thought they were the most magical creature that lived in the ocean. And I actually believed it was real, but mermaids for me were real and they still are to this day. In my dream, I was standing on the edge of a pier looking into the ocean, and I was longing to connect with a mermaid. And I just threw that longing from my heart, calling to a mermaid. And sure enough, this water movement came toward me, and up popped a beautiful mermaid. You can't imagine the beauty of these creatures because when you're out of the body in perhaps astral projecting, you're actually seeing the spiritual being of mermaids. And these archetypes perhaps go back culturally in our consciousness to the very beginnings of when human beings, split into being human and cast off the fishtail. And I said, please, please, please let me be a mermaid. Just for a little bit of time, please let me be a mermaid. Please let me be a mermaid. And I was begging her to let me feel what it felt like to be a mermaid. And she granted my wish. She granted my wish. And suddenly I was a mermaid underwater. And I had gills, and I was breathing through my gills. I was breathing the water, which was warm. It wasn't cold, it was warm. And I was breathing and looking around, and I had long flowing hair. And it didn't last long because she only gave it to me for a brief while. But I've never, never, never forgotten it. And I think because I had that longing and that, I dream a genie, you rub the bottle and you get your wish. That that archetype actually lives in me. I still remember it. I can access that as soon as I close my eyes and remember that archetype. And that feeling and that love and that longing goes into all my mermaid paintings. I'll show you the entire figure. She is a nude, and she's gorgeous. And she's signed and dated 2005. I just want to tell you a little bit about mermaid. The mermaid is found cross-culturally all over the world for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. That's something to consider, right? What is going on with this archetype? And mermaids, of course, live in this liminal in between space between the land and the sea. And of course, we all grew up with the fabulous story, The Little Mermaid, right? Where she casts off her tail and becomes a human briefly. And again, there's this longing to be other. And in European history, the mermaids are perilous, they're sirens. And in European folklore, the mermaids are sirens that call for either enlightenment or shipwreck to the sailors. So they actually could transform a human being. And what better archetype to have on your wall than a mermaid, right? Talk about healing. And in Jungian psychology, she's the anima. She's the female who can navigate the unconscious underwater. She is the queen of that realm. No wonder it is a archetypal icon for women. So we integrate our wild, instinctual nature. That's a woman's task, but never to lose sight of this fierce, raw, wild woman that also dwells in our heart. Also, as a mermaid, the from the waist down, she starts becoming an amphibian, As a mermaid, her lower body starts getting shimmery, glittery scales, which many times in my art I'll use glitter. So you can't see it when you look at it, but when you turn the image sideways, she shimmers. I just love that. It's magic. And why not? And the lower part of her body is a tail, which keeps her protected and not exposed, keeping one source of power and mystery and instinctual strength rooted safely in the creative depths. Isn't that beautiful? So I'll put the link for her in the vlog today, and I've listed her in my SunHeart Boho Clothing, and you can find her there, and there'll be a link to her. Okay,